Hi, everyone. We are here today with none other than Gary Martin, one of the best runners that's ever come out of Pennsylvania, male runners. One of the things that Gary is noted for is breaking in his junior year an almost 40-year-old record for the mile in Pennsylvania by another athlete that then went on to run for UVA, Ken Lowry. You ran 3:57.98 in a high school only meet, which was the fastest mile time in a high school only meet ever in the United States. And then bettered that at Hoka in the pro race, running 3:57.89. Because I know that the transition to college can be really challenging, and a lot of college coaches don't even check in with kids, high school coaches, to find out how they train. But I understand that the head coach at UVA, Vin Lanana, talked with you and your coach, Paul Skalakis, about your training. So how was that onboarding from high school running and high school training to UVA? What was different and what was the same?
Well, it was honestly the transition, I would say. Like you said, it was made really easy. I had multiple Zoom calls with Coach Vin, Coach Paul, and we just kind of talked through what I had done, what I was going to do, and how we can make that transition. And I mean, for me, I think the most daunting part was just going up in volume, because in high school, I usually only ran 40 miles a week. And I knew now I was going to have to be running at least 60, 65 every week. It was definitely daunting, but I think just making a smooth transition of building up over the summer made it a lot easier. Once I got to school, having teammates to train with made it a lot easier. So it was definitely an easier transition than I expected.
Now, when I was at UVA, when I was in high school, I might have been the only All-American on my small team. You also ran for a small schooling team.
Mm-hmm.
There were probably 5 or 6 women who had competed at Penn Relays that year, and it was multiple All-Americans. Plus, they were coming off of 2 years in a row of winning NCAAs. So there was a lot of competing on the runs, even on recovery days. How has that been managed at UVA?
I honestly think we manage it pretty well. In terms of when we go out for a recovery run or a training run, everyone runs at their own pace, really. I mean, there's usually, if there's a few guys who are feeling good and want to push it, there might be 3 or 4 guys who break away from the pack. There might be a few guys who drop back, some guys who stick in the middle, but I don't think it ever feels like it's competing. Everyone understands that people train in different ways. And I think you kind of understand that it just works differently for different guys. It's a pretty good dynamic.
That's good. And I understand too that it sounds like Vin's good at customizing the training to the individual. My youth coach was Mark Wetmore, who's at University of Colorado, and he was the master of customizing the running to the individual. Do you feel that Vin is that way, and Vin and Trevor?
Yeah, I do. They're very hands-on, and especially I feel like you can see it in workouts where we'll have 3 or 4 different workout groups, and some guys moving in and out of different workout groups if they feel like it's like, if there's a guy who's maybe in between a miler and a 5K guy, he might do some work with the 5K guys and hop in with the milers. And there's a lot of customization. You'll hardly find everyone doing the same workout. And I think that's definitely is a big benefit of both having that many talented guys and having coaches who are willing to be open to suggestions and move guys around.
Now, one of the transitions I found was really challenging. Now, you're an only child, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have 8 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And so I think the first time I got my own room was my second year of college. How was that transition, having to share a room with somebody?
Sharing a room, honestly, was pretty well. My roommate, Will, he's on the team and he was great. I think we were very like-minded. Just being in the dorms and sharing a living space with other people was definitely a struggle, because even though my roommate was like-minded, I mean, there'd be times where it'd be loud in our dorm at 3 a.m. and, we have a workout at 7:30 the next morning. So it's frustrating. And I struggled a lot with it the first semester, like just sleep, because even when it was quiet, I feel like I was so stressed out about trying to sleep that I would be worrying so much about it that I wouldn't get any sleep. So that was a big struggle for me in the first semester.
The other thing too is that there's so many new germs to get used to. And I understand you got mono. So
I did, yeah.
Did you have to isolate from your roommate? What did that look like?
Well, I got lucky. I got mono at the very end of the year when classes were done. It was unfortunate because I got it in the middle of postseason. So in the middle of the postseason for running. So I missed the end of my season. I think it could have been a lot worse because I didn't even have to isolate from my roommate. I recovered most of it. Most of the time I was recovering at home.
Did you have mono at ACCs or was it after that?
I was diagnosed after it. I felt great for the prelim. I started to feel sick the next night, which wasn't the night of the race. And I started to feel sick that night. And then the next morning I woke up with the race and felt sick. And I did what I could to get ready for the race. I didn't feel terrible going to the line, but I definitely felt a little off.
In what ways has, say, training with a lot of guys been helpful for you from coming from a place where you didn't necessarily have a lot of people to train with?
It's been helpful in multiple ways, I think. Biggest thing it's helpful for is just the daily runs. Like when you're in college and you're running 70 to 80 miles a week, it's just like it's tedious. So it just helps to have friends around who can run your pace, who you can talk to, and to make the runs fly by. And then I think another way it helps is in workouts, both to drag you through the hard workouts and also to keep you disciplined maybe during the lighter workouts so that you don't push it too hard. Like you don't want to be the person who's pushing the pace on a workout that's like running 210 for 800 when you're supposed to run 218. So I think it just keeps you disciplined.
Now, do you guys hang out a lot? We were very united at UVA. The guys and girls hung out a lot, the distance runners. Do you guys hang out a lot with the girls team or the girl distance runners?
We do. There's always team events. We have team houses. Like there's
Yeah,
a lot of the guys live
that.
in houses. Yeah. So we're always over at the team house, hanging out, watching sports and doing stuff with the girls team too.
Will you live at a team house next year?
I'm not next year. This coming year, I'm going to be in an apartment with two of my teammates. Going forward in the next few years, I might move into the team house.
Do you have a summer job?
I would say it's sort of a job. I'm writing Fastidious Mag.
I'm so proud of you because I saw you last week at New Balance.
Yes, I was working for Fastidious Mag.
Yeah, so I'm so proud of you because, well, first of all, to kind of put yourself out there, publicity role. Tell me about what that role was at New Balance. What was your job there?
Yeah, so in New Balance, I was mostly interviewing athletes after the races, doing like race breakdowns, just helping to get into like a look into the athlete's mind.
Are you a good writer?
I'd like to think so. I've always enjoyed writing.
What are you studying?
I'm undecided right now. I'm
Okay.
leaning towards doing something with media or English.
Do you guys do double runs down there and weightlifting?
Yeah, we do. We have a pretty consistent lifting program where we'll lift twice a week throughout the year, and doubles about the same. Depends on the time of the season. I, for the most part, double twice a week, sometimes one. If I'm really, really into races, maybe I won't double, but I usually do.
What's your mileage look like?
Yeah, it's definitely increased. I think I was around consistently like 40 on average in high school. And at UVA, I would say I was 70 on average, went up to high 70s occasionally.
No injuries your first year?
No,
Just honor?
thankfully not. I feel like hopefully I did a good job of recovering and doing what I had to stay healthy and just being smart, listening to my body when I had to.
Do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, I think running takes up a lot of time, obviously, but especially in Charlottesville, I love to just go to different coffee shops, drink coffee. I'm a big sports fan. I follow the 76ers pretty religiously and the Eagles, the Phillies too. I think that takes up a lot of my free time, but definitely I'm a big sports fan and just enjoy trying different foods and drinking coffee and stuff.
Yeah, so speaking of foods, your coach mentioned that you're a foodie.
You know, we get a dining plan at UVA where you get meal selects, but you also get flex dollars, which you can use at like restaurants around Charlottesville. And I think me being a foodie means that they get wiped out way quicker than they should. There's a really good food scene in Charlottesville. I feel like I'm just always trying to try new food and seeing what I like in Charlottesville.
Have you ever gone to the White Spot for a Gus burger?
I haven't actually. I've had my girlfriend actually talked about the White Spot. I know there's a lot of it's very popular in Charlottesville, but I haven't been yet.
So one of the things that Paul, your coach, Paul Skalakis said, first of all, he said he learned so much from you as a coach. You're clearly the best runner he's ever coached. He said one of the strengths that Gary had was taking care of all the little things. So can you expound more on that?
When he says the little things, I think I was pretty good at high school of kind of trying to get rid of any outside factors that could influence running. So for me, that was making sure I take care of sleep, making sure I take care of eating, recovery, and just doing what I have to mentally know that the biggest thing affecting my running is my training. And if training goes well, I'm going to run well. Like I don't have to worry about anything else.
And what does, say, recovery look like for you? How do you do soft tissue care on your own?
Yeah, I mean, in high school, it was mostly, I think, just rolling, rope work, compression therapy. It's similar in college. We have more resources available now. Like I'll get massages every now and then from massage therapists and stuff like that. But it's mostly the same. I don't think it's anything crazy. It's just rolling, stretching before runs, making sure I stay on top of the little things.
You know, what was the rigor of classes compared to what you anticipated?
It was a lot of work and a lot of busy work, but in terms of difficulty, I think it was honestly an easier transition than I expected. And that might be a combination of me as a person. I'm pretty good about staying on top of homework and like due dates and stuff. So that wasn't an issue. And I think my high school did a good job preparing me, but I felt like the transition itself wasn't too hard. I mean, obviously I needed to adjust expectations. Like if I'm used to being a straight A student in high school, I might get some B's in college now that I'm at UVA, but for me, like I'm not someone who's going to stress myself out a ton if I get a B in a class or something, as long as I'm doing well as a whole.
What's been like your favorite class you took your freshman year?
That's a tough one. I think I liked my NWAR a lot, which I know you mentioned about the great English department when you were there. And I haven't taken a ton of English classes yet, but that one was really interesting because it was about digital media and we got to watch movies and stuff and we got to make a podcast. And it was just, I liked the format. It was very discussion based and I got to hear a lot of different opinions from my classmates and my professor.
And so NWAR is English writing, ENWR?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, I remember those abbreviations. And I should have said first year because at UVA, they don't say freshman, they say first year.
Yes.
Right? They still,
I finally have it down. It took me some time, but
have you been to Monticello?
I have. When I went on my visit, me and my parents went and we didn't do the actual tour, but we were at the Monticello Museum.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the views from there are incredible. You guys run at a place called, is it Panorama Farms?
Yes, it is.
How do you like that?
It's awesome. It's one of the prettiest cross country courses I've ever seen. It's a difficult course. It's not, I wouldn't say it's fun to run, but it's true cross country. It's grass, there's hills. It'll make you hurt, but it'll be a good race.
I understand that Vin gave you the option to not run cross country your freshman year. Is that true?
A little bit. I mean, I don't think there was ever a point where you sat down and said, you don't have to run cross country. Like, I never felt pressure to run, but I think I just was always set on running it. So it was never really an option that crossed my mind.
I'm guessing that you prefer track over cross country. Is that true?
Yes.
So what was that like moving up to a longer distance for cross country?
It was humbling. It was not easy and I expected there'd be bumps. There might have been more bumps than I expected. Like I didn't expect to come in and be a star right away, but I think I was hoping for a little more success. But at the same time, putting it in perspective, I think it was a good experience and I needed to have those bumps to get better at the 8K and 10K distance and ultimately just get stronger as a runner.
Yeah, I was talking with Marco Langen, who finished his first year at Villanova, and after the cross country season, they decided he would redshirt the rest of the year just to build him up his foundation. I watched NCAAs online, and he came across a finish line it was more like a road race. It was like 1,000 people coming across the finish line at the same time as him. And so you come from a state where you're number one and you're setting records, and all of a sudden you're lost in the crowd coming across a finish line, trying to figure out where your team is in a crowd of people. So what was that like for you, not being like the only guy coming across the finish line?
It's kind of cool. It's a lot more of a strategic racing, which I think is something I need to work on because in high school, cross country especially, I don't think I was the smartest runner. I was always the best runner, so I didn't have to be. And I could go out really fast and just say, hey, if anyone wants to go with me, I know they'll die. And even if I died, they'll just die harder. So I was able to do that. But when you're in college, you really have to plan your race out better, which I think I'm still learning how to get better at. And it was definitely a learning experience.
Tell me about, you're thinking about all that, about how it's gone from having an honest race like the Prefontaine, let's just go out there and have a good race, to a strategic race.
Yeah, it's tough because I definitely have mixed feelings on it. And as both a fan and as a runner, I think I prefer to see an honest race because it's more exciting to watch. It's more exciting, in my opinion, it's more exciting to run because you're more likely to come away with a PR. You see fast times. Realistically, I understand the strategy aspect where, one, if you're resting for more races later in the season, or if it's like a league championship and you have another round, you want to use as little energy as possible. If you're a runner who's training and you have a good kick, then you want to, everyone thinks they have the best kick. So they think if it comes down to the last 300 meters, they're going to win. It's interesting. And it's definitely, I understand the strategy to it, but I definitely prefer an honest, fast race.
It's interesting because when I was at UVA, all races were like that. It was like go out at race pace. That's certainly changing because people want the win more than, say, the honest time. Let's put everyone to the test. So do you see a link there between, like, is it becoming more public, that kind of idea of stardom, either go for the win or not at all?
I think it's just the way it works where the people who get the money, maybe not who runs fast, but it's who wins NCAA championships and who gets their name out there. But I think in order to make it there, you need to run fast and prove that you're that talented. So I don't know what it is that's causing the shift in maybe tactical racing. It might just be the fact that we're looking more at recovery and how runners recover and realizing that, like, to get through the rounds and like the length of the season, it's good to run strategically. I don't know how much of an effect like the star factor has on it, but it could be part of it.
You getting so much attention, how do you protect integrity in yourself, your center, in light of all this, being made public as a public figure?
I'm pretty public about what I share in terms of training and running. I use Strava over the summer. I don't necessarily use it during the season, depending on what we're doing workout wise, but I use it over the summer. You can see my training. I post on Instagram, social media pretty regularly with my thoughts on running, my stuff about me. But I think I'm just like, I'm able to take a step back and get off social media when I need to and save certain things for like my friends, family, people close to me, coaches. So I think I'm able to balance what I share and what I keep to myself. And that kind of keeps me, I guess, sane in the social media world.
And then what do you think about the whole idea of name, image, likeness?
I think name, image, and likeness is great. And I think because I think for a while athletes have been sort of taken advantage of, and maybe not as much in track and cross country, where, if we're being honest, not as big of a money sport, but athletes in other sports like basketball, football, where these schools are making millions of dollars off them. And sure, I know they're getting the scholarship, but their schools is still making so much money off them. And it's risky when they have to go to college to go play professionally, and then they could get hurt and lose out on it. So I think it's bigger for them, but even track and field, I think it's good because we see college athletes who are creating a following on social media and doing a lot to market themselves, and for them to be able to make a living off of that now, especially in a sport where it's hard to make a living as a professional athlete, is good because it just creates more avenues for people to stay in the sport.
I think about too how there's been, back in my day, I remember that hanging over my head, that I had a full scholarship and I better run for my money. And I remember the head coach at the time saying, the ACC meet is our bread and butter, and you've only scored 1 point in a couple years or whatever. I was 18 years old. I still had a young, evolving brain. I mean, we all did. And it felt very stressful. Nobody had explained to me that I was actually now an employee of a larger system. I can see it now because I'm older, and that I had to earn my keep. One of the beautiful things I think about how people are able to communicate image on social media is actually even to show their human side. Like, today I failed, and reach a lot of people who respond to that. Or today I'm grieving. Or today I've decided to call it quits, or this has been my longtime struggle with mental illness. Share us how you've been able maybe to share like your human side.
Yeah, I think actually writing Fastidious Mag has been the best way I've done that, because I haven't always been the best at sharing my feelings and being open on like Instagram or Twitter and stuff. Not that I don't want to be, I don't think I post enough about my personal feelings and what I am as a runner on there. Through my writings on Fastidious Mag, I think that's the most open I've been about just how I feel and stress, and how I struggle, like how I struggled with sleep in the first semester. And I'll be honest, I feel like I've been lucky so far where I don't think I've struggled as much as a lot of runners have, and I recognize that. I'm lucky to have a platform where I can talk about what I am going through and what's in my mind, and maybe have an outlet if I feel like I need to in the future.
And I've had some clients that have really struggled with sleep their freshman year, either just due to change of venue or noise. How long did that go on for you, that struggle with sleep or insomnia?
I would say through the whole cross country season, and then it probably got better after I went home for Thanksgiving break and kind of had a little bit of a reset. It was pretty bad where I just wouldn't be able to fall asleep because either it was loud or I was just stressing myself out. And thankfully, I wouldn't say it ever got to a point where I wasn't able to run, but it was definitely affecting me a little bit on a day-to-day basis.
How did you resolve that?
I went to our sports psychology department. I talked to our sports psychologist, Dr. Egan, a couple times, and she was helpful. She gave me helpful tips. I think the biggest way I resolved it was just realizing that I needed to stress less about it, which I know sounds weird. And I mentioned how I was so good at getting all the sleep I can when I was in high school. I think I realized that in college, there's a lot more outside factors, and you need to be willing to just go with the flow sometimes, and maybe realize I'm not always going to get perfect sleep, but if I just don't worry about it as much, I'm going to sleep better overall.
Speaking of like mental health and getting support, I often call them tools. So, and you and I just experienced one of the tools I use, which is finger breathing. And
Yes.
I did that at the beginning so we could both get centered, in our conversation and be really grounded in that and thoughtful. What are some tools that you feel have been tried and true for you, whether or not you thought they were tools?
I think in terms of running, there's just like there's little things I do, like listening to music before a race that just kind of like get me centered, almost like the breathing tip did, where like I feel like I can kind of level my emotions and I can kind of control like my energy levels and stuff like that through music. And then in terms of just like everyday life, we did like doing breathing exercises or like reading before bed kind of calms me down and gets me ready to go to sleep. And just little things like that. I think making an effort to be in tune with your mental side, however that is, can have a benefit.
Do you do any visualization of a race beforehand?
I would say I do. I don't think I ever sit down and think I'm going to visualize this race. Do so much thinking about how the race can play out, either good, bad, neutral, and how I'm going to react, that I would say I definitely visualize.
I know breathing, and I tell my clients this, it's the number one quickest way to kind of ease or stop an anxiety. Do you do any kind of deep breathing?
Yeah, I don't think I have any like set exercise that I do, but I'm big on just literally taking a deep breath and just feeling the air go in, go out, and just kind of getting into a rhythm.
And how about self-talk? What are some things you say to yourself either before a race to get you psyched or in a race to shift gears when you need to and stay in control?
I think before the race, you need to be a little bit confident and cocky. Like you need to think you're the best. And even if you're not the most talented runner, convince yourself the best and that you can win. You also need to expect that you're going to have a swing of emotions. Like I know I experienced it a lot in track season where literally 1 minute to the next, you could go from thinking it's going to be the worst race ever to thinking you're going to set the world record. And you just need to kind of be able to be balanced and keep yourself level.
Yeah, I often use this acronym RAD. So recognize, accept, decide. So recognize that your emotions are shifting, swinging, accept that that's a thing that happens, you're human, and then decide what you want to do about it.
Yeah.
So when it's happening for you, what's the decision you make?
I think the decision I make is just to trust in my training. And I'm someone who I don't like to overthink the race. I like to just let my instincts take over. And half the time when you go into a race, if you have a plan, it gets thrown out the door. So you really just need to have confidence in yourself and don't get set on one plan. So I just like to trust in my training, let my instincts take over, and just really be confident.
How has that evolved over time from even high school to now?
I think it's a little harder now than in high school because if I'm being honest, in high school, there was so much consistency where my senior year, I don't feel like I had a bad race. Or if I did, it didn't look like it. Like if I was disappointed, I still won the race. So it wasn't like people could look at it and be like, he lost and got blown out. Where in college, you kind of need to be able to roll with the punches and lose a race badly or run a slow time, which happened multiple times, cross country, indoor, even a couple times outdoor. And you just need to be able to regroup. And whether it's having a good workout the next week that instills your confidence back, or just going back and watching old races where you ran well and showing yourself that you're capable of running fast, I think there's multiple ways you can kind of bounce back.
I'm really glad you said that because, you know, when I was a senior in high school, I'd run 4:47 indoor at Harvard, 4:44 at Fifth Avenue Mile, and then the fastest time in Penn Relay's history for an 800-meter split, 2:08. And I really didn't have a bad day or a bad race. I felt on top of the world, completely in control. I felt a sense of mastery that was internalized. I don't know if I would have used that word, but I just knew how to drive the Ferrari that I'd been put inside. And then when I got to college, it was like the car had been taken away. It was like I'd lost my bearings. Certainly other challenges back in the 80s, the mental health wasn't talked about. They really weren't set up to have somebody who got what was going on for female distance runners to be able to talk about that. What was that like for you? You know, you talk about, you were in control. You didn't have a bad race your senior year, first year of college. You're navigating all kinds of stressors you didn't anticipate. How do you be in a way that is confident but not cocky? So how have you navigated that dynamic of mastery to that feeling of all your landmarks have changed? How do I find myself in my first year?
I think it's kind of just like accepting, not even accepting. I think you kind of have to be positive about it and look forward to the challenge. Like for me, I think I had higher expectations for my first year. Like I was hoping I would run, 3:54 in the mile and run and perform better at ACCs. But at the same time, I knew that I was just another guy now, and I was looking forward to that. And I think you kind of just need to embrace it, especially when you're going to a program where there's like UVA right now, where there's so many good guys. And for me, so many good milers. And I was just excited to be just another guy and to get to work out with these guys. And I think there's that competitiveness where you want to be the best guy on your team, because when the team's this talented, if you're the best guy on the team, that means you're going to be one of the best guys in the country. I don't think there's, like what you mentioned, I don't think there's that sense of anyone's trying to show someone up in a workout. And there's like, it's not competitive in workouts, but everyone recognizes that if we work together and we're running fast in workouts, we're going to race. So I think that's a pretty cool perspective to have as a freshman in college.
Yeah, and that says a lot about the culture there, and the culture that Vin and Trevor and Joelle are creating. Yeah, and that's beautiful because Charlottesville is such a gorgeous place to train. It's ideal. It's what's happening in Virginia, in Central Virginia. Tell us a little more then, and we'll wrap this up. What are your intentions as you head to the big horizon of next year, or your second year at UVA?
Yeah, so I think my intentions are to just stay healthy and keep getting better, because I realize that if I just stay healthy and I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm going to keep getting better. And obviously there's goals that come with that. Like I want to go to the Olympic trials this year, and I want to be competitive and run fast. And I don't know what that means, like what time that means and what that will mean in terms of placing in the country. I just want to, like I said, keep improving, fight for a team ACC title in cross country and track, really do my part, score points for the team. And if I'm able to do that, I know I'll be running fast and I'll be where I want to be individually as well.
What event do you want to do at the Olympic trials?
Probably the 1500. That's my favorite. Obviously, I'm open to the 5K or the 800 if I find more success. As of now, I think the 1500 is the sweet spot.
All right. So what's your favorite coffee drink? Because you say you hang out in cafes.
Yes, my favorite, probably a cappuccino. I'm not big on like sweet coffee.
What is your favorite foodie go-to meal?
Probably either sushi or Mexican.
Anything else you want to add since we're wrapping up here?
I've been extremely lucky so far at UVA. Like I know obviously you got to experience it. It's an awesome place to be. The school is beautiful. I'm lucky right now. It's a really good group of people there. So I've had a great experience.
Part of why I do what I do in the world, has coached athletes, been a school teacher, and then got my master's in sports psychology, is sort of be the person that wasn't there for me in a really powerful way. And I don't regret my experience in college because it was just a different time. And I'm so appreciative now of when I do hear young people like you have had good experiences, or I just did a podcast with Marley Starlipper, an inconsistent experience, but taking that and coming through it with power. So either way, young people are learning how to turn their experiences into gold. And it sounds like you're one of those people.
I try to be.
All right, Gary. Well, have a good summer. And I just like to say, wahoo wah.
Wahoo wah. And yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Take care, Gary.
Thank you. You too, Meg.
All right. Bye-bye.